Welcome back, everyone, and a special hello to any new listeners joining us today. We are so excited to bring you a very special episode of the Stock Show Sisters podcast because for the first time ever, we have two guests joining us. Today, we're sitting down with two incredibly accomplished collegiate livestock judges who have made a major impact in the judging world through hard work, discipline, and an undeniable passion for the livestock industry. From Arizona to Texas to Oklahoma and beyond, Lexi Hunt and Madison Fisher have built impressive judging careers while navigating college, competition, and life away from home. Today, we're diving into everything from judging culture and fashion to mentorship, lessons learned, and an inside look into what makes a collegiate livestock judging experience so impactful. So grab your notepads because the amount of wisdom these young ladies are about to share is more than you can memorize. Please join me in welcoming Lexi Hunt and Madison Fisher to our first ever two-guest episode. Lexi and Madison, thank y'all so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you both on to share some of your experiences and advice for other women in the stock show industry. So without further ado, can you tell us a little bit more about yourselves, where you're from, and how you got involved in the industry? Lexi, do you want to kick us off?
So my name is Lexi Hunt. I actually just graduated from Texas Tech University this past weekend. So I'm originally from Buckeye, Arizona. I lived in the same house my entire life, and I had two older sisters. They were actually 10 years older than I was. So the minute I could remember anything, I was always in the barn helping them with their show projects. And I guess that's where my passion for the livestock industry began, and I just kind of ran with it. So I remember I would count down. At first it was years, and then it was to the point that I was counting down the months until I could go to my first jackpot show. And so my older sister ahead of me, she showed goats. So that would have been what I started out with my first year. And then the next year I made the transition to sheep, and I never looked back from that point forward. From there, I attended South Plains College in Levelland, Texas for 2 years during junior college. And then I transitioned on to Texas Tech University, where I wrapped up my bachelor's degree in animal science and then also competed on their livestock judging team. So
wonderful. Madison, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Madison Fisher. I'm from Hempstead, Texas. Livestock judging has kind of always been a part of my life, and especially with cattle. That's how I got started in the industry. I've showed Red Angus and Red Brangus cattle since pretty much as soon as I started walking. First livestock show I ever attended was HLSR in Houston. There's a picture, we always kind of laugh. My parents grew up showing, of course, and as soon as I was old enough to go to a show, they were dragging me around in a little red wagon. So cattle and showing in the agricultural industry is kind of all that I've ever known. Once I graduated from Waller High School, that's when I really got into livestock judging and toured NOC at Tonkawa in Oklahoma, and I loved it. That's where I judged for Bedwell. I just recently graduated from NOC with my agribusiness degree, and soon I'll be attending Kansas State University in the fall. So I'm pretty excited.
Wonderful. It sounds like you both have had a pretty good background and introduction into the industry, and definitely have some family ties that have supported you along the way. So you both kind of mentioned how you got involved in livestock judging, but at what point did you realize that judging was something you could pursue competitively in college?
Yeah, so I probably can't pinpoint the exact moment that I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I remember when I was younger, I would see people, on Facebook that were judging collegiately, or we had a few family friends from Arizona that actually attended junior college and went on to judge at a university level as well. And so I remember watching those people and seeing success that they had on social media. And to me, those were superstars. I didn't know any better. And I did a write-up last week, and I kept saying, I said, I was just this girl from Arizona. I feel like a lot of people in the livestock industry, you don't hear a lot about that industry being successful people from the state of Arizona or even being relevant in that particular state. And so I was just a girl from Arizona, and I thought that collegiate livestock judges were superstars, and those were the people that I looked up to. And I just always knew and felt like that was my path. That was what I needed to pursue and I needed to do. And so then throughout high school, I was able to do public speaking events and everything possible that I felt that would put me in a better position to then be successful moving forward in collegiate livestock judging.
Yeah, so I think my take on that for sure is similar. So it kind of started out where we would have practices that would be here at my barn, and we would have classes set up, and we would have junior colleges and senior colleges come and practice, and I would see those kids unload out of the van. And I kind of always knew that's something that I'd be interested in doing for sure. But I think the turning point, especially in my career, when I knew that I wanted to do this on a collegiate level, is when my high school team, we qualified through area. We were third there. So then we got to state. Then we ended up being second in the state of Texas. The top three teams actually go to a different national contest. So we were allowed to go to American Royal. So we had practiced and practiced. And fortunately enough, I won my first national contest. I guess it was my sophomore year in high school. And that's when I kind of knew that's what I wanted to do. So, man, I'm pretty talented at this. Let's see how successful I can be later on in the future.
Wonderful. It sounds like you both got a little taste of success and had some older generations that you looked up to, that you wanted to be just like them and even maybe be more successful than them. And so I think having really in any competitive sport per se, if you have that tangible accomplishment that you're looking at, being able to say, I want to do that one day, it's a lot easier to build those steps and take opportunities to accomplish those things, just like the both of you have done. On that same realm, you both grew up in the livestock industry. You both showed livestock. What drew you to the judging side versus other areas like production and maybe the corporate side of ag, or even maybe the policy side of ag? I think there's several different avenues. I know, having gone to Texas A&M, we have a lot of people that are interested in various areas, all coming from similar backgrounds to us three, with showing livestock and being involved in 4-H and FFA. But there's so many opportunities out there. So what drew the both of you to judging?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I was looking at all these, that was one of my favorite ones, because I think that's something that we don't necessarily always talk about. Is our livestock industry has gotten so big. So what area should I try to pursue, or what should I focus on? And so I personally, I've had the opportunity to have some sort of involvement in almost every area of our livestock industry. And I love them all, from raising them to being on the show side of things and getting to help families behind the scenes, at their barn or at livestock shows. I love all of it. And so I think for me, the biggest thing that probably pushed me and drew me to livestock judging as a long-term goal, and especially here collegiately, was just the fact that it was the opportunity for me to truly prove myself. And one of my favorite things about livestock judging is when you go into a contest, it is just you. It is just you and your skill set and your brain for 8 hours to try to figure out, okay, how do I need to place this class, and how can I talk it to the best of my ability? And so that was something that always made me feel like it gave me the greatest opportunity to succeed. And so once I decided and made that decision that I was going to judge collegiately, and it ended up being successful for me, then I'm able to run with that and continue to judge moving forward. And to add on to that, I also still want to be involved in the other areas of the industry as well, especially as I move into my professional career, and then with the hopes to then be able to raise livestock at some point as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with Lexi. Agriculture is so broad, and now in today's modern society, there's so many different career paths that you can take. But I think for me, what really guided me to livestock judging is we raised our own cattle forever, and I always wanted to improve that also. And I think from a different aspect is I love the people aspect of livestock judging. There's so many people you meet. The networking is insane. You also don't realize how many people have judged in their past career. And so there's so many different people you meet across the country. And I think that's something that's what drew me to livestock judging, is just the people aspect, wanting to better my own herd and livestock as well. But like Lexi said, it gives you a chance to really prove yourself and prove your voice of reason. I mean, that's the only time that you go in somewhere and you're trying to prove your opinion right. And you have to tell yourself, like Lexi said, for 8 hours, how do I sort through these 4 animals And how can I explain that to somebody that I've never met before? And so I think that's something important to think about that we usually don't talk about. But that's really what drew me to livestock judging, was the networking aspect, the people, and then also to get the opportunity to learn about new species, including my knowledge already about cattle. So I can take that back home and also incorporate that into my herd now.
That's a great point that both of you make. The long-term learning that comes along with judging and being able to implement that back into your operations when you guys are going to have your own one day. And I really like the point that you both kind of hit on with proving yourself. And it's a great outlet to work on yourself, but at the same time, you're working on yourself in a team environment. And like Madison said, that there's a lot of networking that happens in livestock judging. I think no matter what industry you're in, no matter what sector of the agriculture industry you're doing, networking is one of the most important things. And we hear it all the time, and I've said it on the podcast before, but it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's going to get you a lot further in a lot of things and lead you to a lot of success a lot quicker. But I think that those points led us perfectly into some of the unexpected realities of collegiate judging. And I think there's a large number of, say, 4-H and FFA members that are judging in elementary, junior high, and high school that do not go on to collegiate livestock judge, myself included. Mostly because I didn't have the skill that you ladies have, or even a tenth of it. I think that there's a lot of mystery about collegiate livestock judging. And so if we could kind of talk about some of those, was there anything that surprised you once you got to college and were in that more collegiate livestock judging environment?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that I went to junior college at South Plains College. And for those of you that do or don't know anything about the state of Texas, the FFA kids in Texas at the high school level, they are not required to give reasons at any time during their judging career unless they choose to judge 4-H. So when I went to JUCO, 8 out of my 10 teammates were from the state of Texas. All of them but one had never given a set of reasons in their life before the first day of practice. I had been blessed. We always gave reasons in Arizona or the contest that I went to out of state. So I had been practicing reasons since before I could remember. And so I remember going into that first practice because I had no idea where I would stand up against my teammates. I had no idea if I was truly good at this or what my coach would think of me. And I am not trying to discredit my teammates at all because they're some of my best friends in the entire world and they made leaps and bounds. But I just remember being so shocked about the fact that everybody is starting out at different levels, because I was always envious of people that got to grow up in Oklahoma and Texas and even in the Midwest, because I felt like they had so many more opportunities from a judging and showing standpoint than I did. And then I got to junior college and I was like, oh, wow, like I may be more ahead than I think in terms of my ability and what I'm coming into it with. And so I think it's really cool to see the different stages that everybody comes in at. And then I think about where we landed and where we ended up and our ability at the end of junior college. And I think that's the beauty of livestock judging, is just the growth that you'll experience.
Coming from a Texas kid, it's pretty annoying, honestly, how growing up in the state of Texas and wanting to be competitive, especially from a livestock judging standpoint, it was almost like you had to go out of state or wait till the 4-H contest until you could give reasons. So then I was kind of hesitant, because any time that I'd have an opportunity to give a set of reasons truly would be at our junior national shows in the summertime. You'd only give maybe 2 sets of reasons. So I did feel like when I came to junior college, that's what people have to remember, is no matter what, you have to stay humble. Livestock judging is a sport that will humble you more times than none. And I think that something interesting is that when you get to somewhere like junior college, you come from all different aspects and walks of life, and everybody has different backgrounds. And I think that's something important to remember. And especially, like Lexi said, we're all on different levels. And I hadn't given the same amount of reasons like some of my teammates from the Midwest that have been judging since they were 8 years old. I think that's pretty crazy to think about. But yeah, like Lexi said, that is true that people in Texas, especially like FFA kids, we're only used to answering questions, and then you have keep and cull, and then slaughter grading and feeder grading. So there's no sets of reasons besides that one 4-H contest that goes on in the summertime. So it's pretty interesting, but it's important to always stay humble for sure.
I was just going to add on to that, and I know we'll get to advice and stuff later on within the episode, but while we're on the topic, and something that I felt I wish more people would have pushed to me or I would have known growing up, is just like, even if you don't get the opportunity to give reasons, or maybe you don't give as many sets as people do in other states, I always encourage people to get involved in some sort of public speaking contest or any entity they can. Because to me, I felt like when I was growing up, that was the most beneficial deal, to be able to learn how to use your voice, how to be comfortable in terms of presenting in front of either a crowd of people or in the sense of livestock judging where you'll be one-on-one with someone. And so I feel like if that's something you struggle with, or you're like, okay, maybe I'm a little fearful of that, and that's why I don't want to pursue judging moving forward, I would just always encourage people to get involved as early as possible in any sort of public speaking deal to better prepare yourself, even if you aren't given the opportunity to give reasons as much as the next.
That's a great point, Lexi, and I really appreciate how you highlighted the growth that all of your team members experienced in junior college and then even on into senior college in Madison, how the judging experience will humble you. I think that a lot of people go in and have these high expectations for themselves, and a lot of times, most of the times, you're not going to reach those expectations, especially not on the first, second, or third try. And speaking from experience, those livestock judging contests will definitely humble you. Practice will humble you, and even just working one-on-one with industry leaders, it can be very humbling, but it's a great experience. And Lexi, I can never reiterate enough how important it is, just like you said, for people to get involved in public speaking. It does not matter what industry, what sector of agriculture, what contest you're doing, or even if you're going to college. I think that public speaking is one of the characteristics of people that sets them apart from others. You are way more apt to be able to handle conversations with leaders within the company you're working for, with donors, really just anyone. And so whether you're using those public speaking skills to livestock judge or just to be a professional out in the adult world, it's so beneficial. So love that you hit on that. On that note, I did want to kind of jump ahead really quick. Both of you ladies are so well spoken, and I think being an outsider of the livestock judging world, I have noticed the infamous livestock judging voice. So I'm curious to hear y'all's perspective. Do y'all hear that? Am I making that up? Where does that come from? And does everyone develop it naturally, or is that something that you guys are taught? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I think that's a really fun topic to talk about. So I personally never realized that once I moved to Texas that I got an accent until I think of the first Christmas I went home. And I think about every person was like, oh my gosh, you sound like you're from Texas. And I feel like you never realize if your voice changes or anything like that. And I personally hate listening to myself on video or anything just as much as the next person. And just a funny little quick add on here. I used to hate the word y'all so much. It drove me nuts when people would say it. And I think I made it about 3 weeks in the state of Texas, and I was y'all this, y'all that, and now it's just part of my everyday language. But I feel like I never, I guess, tried to force a different accent when I went in to give a set of reasons. And I think that's something that's really hard, especially on the high school side, because depending on different coaching, or I feel like when you're in high school, you're really just trying your absolute hardest to make yourself sound different or to stand out. And sometimes it can be too much. I know when I listen to high school reasons, the kids that just come in and they talk with their normal voice in a presentation type manner, that's very easy to listen to. And in my opinion, it's easier to listen to than something that's forced. And so I've always encouraged people, if I have the opportunity to give them feedback or to coach certain teams, is just be natural in terms of your tone of voice, but then also in the same sense, like we talked about with public speaking, that will help you learn how to project your voice. And I think projection is probably more important than trying to change your voice necessarily.
Yeah, that was a great point that Lexi brought up. I think the most important thing in judging, especially for kids that are interested, especially in high school or middle school, just starting out with livestock judging and oral reasons, I think the best thing to remember is your pauses and to be natural. You can't force to be someone you're not. It's really hard to force a different accent. Speaking from experience, when I went to junior college and I gave my first set of reasons, Bedwell was like, okay, we're going to have to fix some grammar, fix some pauses, things like that. But it all comes natural and with repetition a lot of times. I was helping some 4 H kids, and I always tell them once you kind of give those first 10 sets, it just comes more natural to you. And that's what you should be the most confident in. And I think people are the most confident in with their voice. That will be the best and most successful for them. Because really, if you try to force something that's not you, it's not going to work. And it's somewhat obvious if someone's trying to force a different accent that's not theirs.
I love that you guys point out projection and enunciation. I think kind of reflecting while you guys were sharing, that might be what is so identifiable about the livestock judging quote unquote voice that maybe I was thinking I heard, is just that y'all learn how to truly enunciate your words and speak clearly so that your audience can hear you well and understand what you're saying. So I think that's a great overview of why it seems that way. But just like you said, natural voices are the best voices, and just making sure that your audience can understand you. So thanks for going on that little sidetrack with me. But kind of back on the collegiate judging, maybe are there any other misconceptions that people seem to have about collegiate judging teams or just the world of livestock judging?
I think a lot of the times the big misconceptions that people see, a lot of times people just see contest day or awards day. And I think what a lot of people have misconceptions about is really the work and effort and the time that's put in before contest day arrives. We're spending at most 12 hours a day, if not more, on some practice days. And I think people don't realize that. If you just alone count up the miles that took place from Congress to Denver, it would blow somebody's mind. And I think that's important for people to realize that don't livestock judge. There's a lot of effort and time that's put into these practices before contest day, because that's most of the time what people just see up front.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And the one thing that came to my head with that question was just that it'll be easy. I think people are like, okay, collegiate livestock judging, it's going to be fun. We're just going to have a great time in the van, which you do. But I remember like in junior college, I judged for Connor Brew. He was our coach there at South Plains. And he was very adamant that we would not sleep or be on our phones in the van. And I'm not trying to deter anyone from going to judge for him like it wasn't fun, because we had a great time and a blast. But we worked just about every second that we possibly could in order to maximize our time together. And so there's definitely nothing easy about collegiate livestock judging, but I promise you the rewards and the fun that you'll have are totally priceless in that sense.
Man, and not to forget all of the actual college work that you guys are having to do on top of all of the practice and workouts. I'm sure it can be overwhelming, but just like y'all said, very rewarding. So on that note of college, you both mentioned that you moved out of state, away from home to go to junior college, and you'll both still be out of state, away from home for senior college. Obviously, Lexi, you've graduated, but Madison, you shared you'll be going to Kansas State. So what was that transition like? Were there any major struggles or benefits of you going out of state for college?
Honestly, this might surprise most people, but going out of state, I did miss HEB. I will say, as a Texan girl myself, HEB is the best grocery store. Please sponsor me, HEB. But yeah, you definitely miss not having a good grocery store. Not to mention, if you go to a junior college like NOC in Tonkawa, the Mexican food's really different. But all jokes aside, and something that was difficult for me, obviously being in the part of Texas I am, I didn't see snow very often. So this is pretty funny story. So we got back late from a contest. I can't remember what contest it was, but we got back at like 2 a.m. Well, obviously I slept in and I didn't see the forecast that, obviously it was going to snow a lot. So I woke up and my house had no water. So I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? My pipes are froze. So yeah, that was a big adjustment, dealing with the weather, things like that. But I think just getting used to the new environment that you're living at. I mean, things are totally different than what you're used to. But I think change is good. And I think it's an important step in life. I think a lot of it comes with maturity. And I think it's really a good part for someone to take. It's a big leap, but I think moving out of state was something that really pushed me to be better, have some maturity that comes along with that, and it helped push me to be more successful at the end of the day.
Hi, I'm Carol, and I've been a part of the Ranch House Designs team for over 10 years. As a proud mom of 2 girls who show sheep and goats and stay busy with sports, I know the value of reliability and a quick turnaround. And that's exactly what the Ranch House Designs Web Updates team delivers. When you have a website with Ranch House, you get unlimited updates, all guaranteed within 3 business days. And 99% of the time, we take care of them the same day. It's just one of the ways we make sure your brand is always at its best. Visit ranchhousedesigns.com to get your free quote today.
I feel like the hardest thing for me whenever I moved out of state was probably in terms of transitioning in points of my life was when I graduated high school. I remember I spent probably the month before high school graduation and I cried every night in the barn because I was excited for my future, but I just wasn't ready for what I had to be over. And I think that can be a similar feeling for people. And I love my family. I wish I could spend every single day with them. So I would say personally, that's the hardest part for me. And I understood, unfortunately, I don't have a junior college that's within 10 hours of home. South Plains was actually the closest junior college to me that I was considering. And it was one of the leading reasons that it worked out for me to attend junior college there. But I think the hardest part is not being around your family. But what I will say is that transition, I remember that first time going home afterwards, I was so much more appreciative of what I had. And I think most kids in high school, and you deal with it as a parent or you deal with it as a high schooler, like you get to a point where like, I cannot wait to move out. And that is whether you have the best or the worst family life at home. And I just want some freedom and I want the next thing in life. And I'll tell you what, I thought that I was like, I'm ready to just move on to the next chapter. And I cry every time I leave home still to this day because it makes you appreciate what you have. It makes you appreciate your family and what they've given you. And to me, it's the hardest part, but also one of the more rewarding parts every time I do get to go visit home.
Goodness, I love how you highlight the importance of realizing what kind of background and family life you have. And I obviously have a very different story from you guys because I only moved a little under 2 hours away from home to go to school. And so I did learn. And just like you said, Lexi, I still get upset and teary-eyed every time I leave home because I know I'm going to miss my family and I'm not going to be able to see them every day. And I think that saying is that distance makes the heart grow fonder. And so I'm sure that for you two, that with that distance being multiplied, your appreciation and love for your family just blew up and exploded. But Madison, I also really loved when you mentioned that change is good. And being in a different environment, especially so far away from home, it really forces you, just like you said, to grow in independence and maturity. And I'm sure that unlike myself, if I really was in a bind, I could call my family or I could go home even for a day because it was only an hour and a half drive. But for you guys, that change was truly an accelerator for that independence and maturity because you really didn't have any other option and you were truly forced to build a new support system wherever you were at. And so I'm sure that you did learn a lot of confidence through that discomfort. And I think that can be really encouraging for any of our listeners out there that are either in college far away from family or that are considering moving far away, that it'll all work out. And it is scary and it is sad sometimes, but just like these ladies have exemplified, a lot of success and a lot of growth can come from putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. Well, I would like to move into our next topic. It goes a little bit off of y'all's backgrounds and your experiences in college so far, but were there any lessons from coaches or mentors that have stayed with you the most? Maybe any core values that you've shaped since you've been in collegiate livestock judging?
I think something that has stuck with me since I got to NOC and have judged for Jennifer Bedwell and even graduated is something that she always told us, whether that was before a contest, during practice, after an awards ceremony, whatever the case may be, is she always told us in our team that pressure is a privilege. It's a privilege that you have all the weight of having the expectations, whether that's with the team, with the goals that you set yourself. It's a privilege that you have people and mentors around you pushing you to be better, to reach your goals and accomplishments. And I think that's something that stuck with me, because what a blessing it is to have something in life to where you have people around you that are really pushing you to be successful and grow and change for the better and reach your accomplishments. So pressure is a privilege is really the quote that stuck through me through the 2 years through junior college for sure.
Yeah, I love that quote. That's awesome. I was blessed to have two absolutely amazing coaches that I owe everything I know to in terms of I had Connor Brew at South Plains College, and then I had Skylar Scotton at Texas Tech. And both of them, although they had different coaching styles, they really had the same goal in mind, and it had nothing to do with livestock judging and everything to do with just being a better person. And my favorite conversations, I always sat at the front of the van because I could talk about sheep and goats with Brew or Skylar the entire time. And most of our conversations usually didn't have anything to do about livestock, but more so just about our industry and finding your role in it, and ultimately just being the best person you possibly can, and not for yourself, but for other people. And something that really stuck out to me was in senior college, I was blessed to be on a very competitive team, and our team, we could have sent any 5 of us into the contest and felt confident about our outcome. And so I think something that always stuck out to me that Skylar mentioned is, even though it's an individual event that day for yourself, it's just you out there, you do it for your teammates, because it could have been the ones that are sitting back or helping you in the contest that didn't get the opportunity to see cards that day. They wanted it just as bad as you did. So go into every contest and give it your all, because it's not just for you, it's for your entire teams.
Those are great pieces of advice and wisdom, and you guys have already shared so many bits of wisdom that I'm so excited for our listeners to be able to take in and apply to their lives. I'm sure you guys have a bunch more up your sleeve as we continue through the episode. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how you've both mentioned a lot of the work and time that's put into being successful at these contests, which is what everyone sees. I think that's very applicable to any other aspect of our lives. So how would you say that judging has shaped your mindset outside of the contests?
I personally think that when you grow up showing livestock, you are instilled with a different kind of work ethic and drive than any other kid, at least that I know, that's involved in other sports or industries. And so for me, I guess the easiest transition, when I was done showing, I'm like, okay, where do I put all of this passion and drive that I have? What do I put that towards? And so it was a very easy transition for me to be able to then put that towards collegiate livestock judging, because from a young age, I've always been a very competitive person. And so I wanted to know, how can I be the absolute best at what I'm doing, and what kind of work can I do every single day to achieve that, or at least come close to it? And so in terms of livestock judging, knowing that I was going to show up to every practice and I was going to try my hardest, no matter if I was having a good or a bad day, and I was just going to continue to try to be better and better each and every time that I went to practice and got the opportunity to meet with my coaches. And I just think that kind of work ethic is not something that you necessarily learn from collegiate livestock judging, but it's an outlet for it moving on past your junior show career.
I absolutely agree with what Lexi said. Growing up showing for as long as I can remember, it definitely instills a different type of work ethic that a lot of people don't see. That's very and extremely important, especially in the livestock judging industry. But I think something that's important for people to remember is being humble with that mindset and having that hard work ethic. Everybody can be competitive, but it's important that you also have a team behind you that's supporting you. And you also need to be there for your teammates as well. And I think that's something that's important for people to remember, but definitely having a competitive mindset along with that, but while also still being humble.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you bring that point up too. And I probably missed it just a bit there. As hard as you want to work and as much as you want to be successful on an individual level, it truly does still come down to your team. The majority of the time, no one remembers who the high individual at the contest was, but they sure enough remember who the high team was. And so understanding you want to be the best, but then also never tearing your teammates down, or also wanting your teammates to be on the same level that you are, and vice versa, hoping that they push you as well, is truly the humility of it.
You ladies said it perfectly. The humility is and the work ethic are definitely two of the biggest things that set livestock judgers and livestock showmen apart. Especially now, Lexi, you and I are both transitioning into the professional world, and I think we will see a very clear distinction between people that grew up in the industry, that grew up showing livestock or judging, people that didn't. It's pretty clear. I've personally experienced it just through internships, and having that humility and the work ethic that y'all talked about is very transferable to your professional life after college or even just after high school.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we talked earlier about connections you make through livestock judging and how important that is. And I think that really transpires into your professional career, because if you go into an interview for whether it be an internship or a job, and you have collegiate livestock judging on your resume, and the person that is interviewing you has any idea what that means, I promise you, you probably will be a top candidate, just because it means so much. And it doesn't matter if you marked or never saw the floor. Just having that kind of experience and knowing that you were willing to put in the work to do that, and also the skill set that you learn from it, really sets you apart from any other candidate once you move past collegiate livestock judging.
Something I also forgot to mention, but when we're talking about moving into the professional realm of the industry, I think it's also important to mention that with collegiate livestock judging, that employer is going to see that on your application, you're a part of a collegiate livestock judging team. And it's so important because not only does that mean you're able to work with other people, but it also means that you have a voice of reason and that you are strong in your opinion and you're able to voice that. And another thing with that too, that livestock judging teaches you that a lot of people don't talk about is time management. Livestock judging teaches you so much about time management. It's not even crazy because you have 8 to 10 to 12 minutes to judge 4 animals, and then you have so many ever minutes to prepare a set of oral reasons. So I think that's something, it teaches you so many life lessons and skills to take further on into somebody's career for sure.
Yeah, and I think to piggyback off of that too, decision making is something that is so important and may get overlooked as a skill when you're younger, but is something that if you want to go into any type of role in a job, or especially a leadership role, like, you have to be able to make a decision quick on your feet, mostly in terms of problem solving within your company. And so when you're forced to turn that card in at the end of 10 minutes, and know that you're going to have to defend your decision, that kind of skill is very hard to teach in any other entity.
Those were such good lessons that you ladies mentioned. I was writing them down as y'all were talking about them. The decision making, the teamwork, work ethic, time management, and the voice of reason, among a few others, are really enough to convince anyone, myself, regretting now that I didn't collegiate livestock judge, because wow, the opportunities to learn and to grow as an individual and as a teammate that can later apply to whatever career I'm going to pursue are remarkable. And so if this isn't enough of an advertisement to get you to judge, I don't know what is. I think we had kind of touched on it. And Lexi, you mentioned how easy of a transfer it was for you to take your passion, drive, and work ethic from showing and put that into the competitive outlet that livestock judging is. And I'm curious to see, now that you have both shown livestock and both judged, what is your thoughts on the phrase? I think we've definitely heard it around the barns and on social media, And I think, unfortunately, we do use it a lot of times when someone doesn't do so well, is the phrase, it's one man's opinion on one day. So what is y'all's take on that?
I'll go first on this. This was actually one of my favorite questions. I grew up hearing this all throughout my show career, even my judging career. While it can be frustrating if you don't agree with that one man's opinion, but you have to learn to agree to disagree, right? That's just life. That's not just within our agricultural industry. That's everywhere. Everyone is going to have a different opinion no matter what the topic of conversation is, but it's important to cope with that and learn, especially, when you go to these different contests and things like that, even at a livestock show. I mean, you always have to understand there's always another judging contest. There's always something next. And I think that speaks the same for livestock shows, right? My mom always told me it's just one man's opinion, but there's always another cow show coming up along too. I think that's something that's important to remember, but we need to respect each other's opinions along with that as well. But I think it just goes for all aspects of life. It's important to remember that everybody has a different opinion, but we need to be respectful and humble along with that too. But you just take some of those lessons and move on to the next one. That's how I was always taught growing up, and I think that's important, especially in the livestock judging world today.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the points that you make, Madison. But with that too, obviously that's a phrase that's been thrown around forever, and livestock judging and livestock showing is probably one of the most objective sports that there is within our world. I mean, you go to a sporting event and they've got their set rules, and the referees are going to call it based on the rules that they've read and memorized a million times. And livestock judging is so completely different. And I think what makes it different is each person, regarding what part of the industry you're involved in, you're going to like different things that either suit your operation better or suit your business better. And so that's what drives the differences and the objectivity of our industry. With that, I think what we're doing in terms of involving ourselves in collegiate livestock judging, though, is when you go to a show, I think there should still be a split between good and bad livestock in a grand scheme of things. And then your opinion comes down to, okay, now I can sort out the fine details of the good ones, or now I can get the bad ones kind of lined up exactly how they need to be. And so I think we're setting ourselves up not so we can all go judge a show the exact same, but so that we're qualified to be able to tell the differences between what is good in a grand scheme of things and what is bad. And the more qualified people we can have judging shows, I think it's better for us as a whole.
Those are wonderful perspectives that y'all share. And so, like you both mentioned, obviously everyone has their own opinion. And aside from, like Lexi said, there's clearly bad livestock and then there's the good livestock, and you sort based on your priorities and what you want in your ideal animal. How do y'all go about handling disagreements in contests, or maybe even just disappointments amongst your team, or maybe just internally when you're at those contests?
Something that I think that I always tend to tell myself, and I think it's important, especially listeners that are thinking about collegiate livestock judging, once you first come to junior college, like I said earlier in the episode, your teammates come from all different backgrounds and walks of life. So when someone or an official has a placing that I don't agree with, that may be okay, but that official comes from a different background than I do. It's just like cattleman that runs cattle in Colorado. They're probably not going to have the same opinion on livestock with me being in Southeast Texas. We come from different outfits, different operations, even different species. So like Lexi said earlier, our priorities are different, but I still agree with the standpoint of, good livestock, know they're good and they're still good livestock, and bad ones are still bad. So I think that's something that's important to think about. But what I always tell myself is it's okay to have a difference of opinion because their priorities are just a little bit different, and that's okay. just like a commercial cattleman's not always going to agree with a show person. That mindset is what's important to remember, especially in livestock judging and who's on the committee.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think at every judging contest, not even just at the collegiate level, but there's always going to be at very least one class or usually multiple classes that not everyone can agree with. And people are going to be throwing around the idea that it didn't get officiated right and all that. But once you come out of a contest and you hear those officials, there is no changing them at that point. You just got to live with how it went, and that's what's going to determine the outcome of the contest. So when we would ever have a class that maybe our coaches or we didn't agree with as a team, we used it just as a learning curve moving forward. And then you can go into a contest and say, okay, if I see a challenging class, how can I place this safe? How can I get out of here safe and hopefully not have, a complete inversion or a complete bust and save myself and my team some points? And so I think there's little things that you can take out of those disagreements moving forward. And it's no secret if you follow collegiate livestock judging team at Texas Tech last year, and this probably goes more towards not the disagreement side, but more the disappointment side. And we had a very competitive and successful team, and we were the winningest team of the year, and I would say we felt very confident going into Louisville, which, if you don't know the difference between junior college judging or senior college judging, in senior college, the national championship all comes down to the one contest at the North American in November in Louisville, Kentucky. And so we felt very confident moving into that contest and had a lot of pressure riding on our backs of people just expecting us to be able to bring the bronze bull home, and we didn't. And we ended up being third overall at that contest as a team. We had never been third before, and so it just wasn't our day. And I'll be honest, that kind of pressure in any sort of your life is very hard to handle and to navigate. And so the kind of disappointment that you feel from something that you have poured all your time and effort into and you don't get the outcome you're hoping for, it's a very hard feeling to deal with. And I think it transpires to different outlets within our life as well. But for me, I was able to take that experience and learn from it. And when an outcome is decided, there is nothing you can do at that point to change it. There was nothing we could do that could have changed our placings that day. And learning how to take that and then be able to apply that to different points of our lives when we don't get the outcome we want, and being able to grow and understand that winning that contest would not have changed anything in our lives. What changed our lives was what we learned and what we built leading up to it.
Yeah, I think something to reiterate what Lexi said, there will be disappointment with livestock judging, but there will be disappointment with everything that you are competitive in. And I think that that's important to remember is once the officials are there, they're not going to change. You can't go back and dwell on something and be like, man, if I just changed that one placing on this one class, we would have been second. Or you can't sit there and dwell on it, because I think that's where people get caught in those feelings. And you have to, especially in livestock judging, you have to put all that behind you and focus on the contest and the goal that's moving forward. Another quote that Bedwell always said, judging 48 farm animals is easy, but being a good person is hard. And we already did the hard part, and that's being a good person. So while our team did get third all year, we were still humble with that, and we were still good people while competing. Like Bedwell said, we did the hard part, and that was being good people. You can't do anything to change the outcome, but the most important part is remembering not to dwell on it and thinking that you could have done something different to change that outcome.
Those were wonderful points that you both made, and really just highlighting the importance of being a good person, being humble. And it brought to mind two phrases that my mom always reminded me of growing up, and even still to this day. The first one, Lexi, you reminded me of it, is you're either going to win or you're going to learn. And a lot of the times I was learning, but I think that having that mindset, just like both of you said, when you're let down or you come out a little more disappointed than you're expecting to be, is to see the opportunities to learn from those experiences. And then Madison, you brought up a great point too. Another quote that my mom always told me was to win humbly and lose gracefully. And again, most of the time I was losing gracefully, but when you do have those moments on the pedestal, you need to be doing it humbly. And I know we've talked about humility a lot in this episode, but that really just goes to show how important it is in all aspects of your life. So thank you all so much for highlighting those points. I do want to talk about a pretty fun topic that I've been super excited about. I definitely would not consider myself an expert, but I love fashion. I love fun and funky outfits. And again, looking back, I'm like, man, I really should have livestock judged because the outfits, you guys, you two especially, I have followed you guys on social media and seen your pictures across different things, and y'all's livestock judging outfits are just bomb. And so I think it's fair to say that the judging fashion has definitely evolved over the years. Are there any trends that y'all are seeing right now? Maybe do y'all have a favorite outfit that each of you have worn? And any perspectives or advice to incoming collegiate judges on where they should shop?
Yeah, so people are shocked when I say this, but all of my outfits are thrifted. All of the blazers and jackets that I wear in contests are thrifted. So I get them through either Etsy, apps like Poshmark or eBay, which I know that sounds crazy to certain people, but it's true. But yeah, certain trends that I'm seeing currently are like studded or beaded blazers, especially material like leather. Bedwell always jokes around because we were a girl-heavy team, so livestock judging was our first priority, but fashion was second, and she made sure we always looked good. I think making sure that it's still professional, obviously, and conservative, but being confident is the most important thing, and no matter what anybody says about your outfit, as long as you're confident in it, that's what matters. But yeah, all of my outfits are thrifted, so shop online, guys.
Yeah, absolutely, Madison. Your team was always dressed to the nines at every contest. I would say my standpoint on it, like I always wore every single time either a black or a white high-necked bodysuit undershirt. And then I kind of would just let the blazer speak more than anything, and then with jewelry on top of that. But same deal, it is very hard to find brand new blazers that kind of fit the mold that we're looking for within livestock judging. So all of my blazers were purchased on Poshmark. You have to do some digging. So if you're thinking about judging collegiately and you're in high school, I would start getting on Poshmark now, because I would check it about once a day, once every other day, to see what kind of new stuff had been posted, because it can be challenging at times to go ahead and find the kind of blazers that we're looking for. With that, though, I will shout out, especially if you're taller. I'm 5'8", so I know a lot of people struggle with finding slacks that are long enough, especially when you have to wear boots. The Express Editor flares in long are what I wore throughout my entire judging career, and they are the best slacks. So if you're looking for those, get on Express and order you a pair.
Love. Lexi, I'm also 5'7", 5'8", and I have a pair of those Express flares. Amazing. Could not recommend a better pant. But I'm sure with you guys being on the road so much, online shopping was definitely the way to go. A lot more convenient and able to find those unique pieces that other people don't have. But maybe for those of you listening that aren't on the road yet, if you do have a Goodwill nearby, I have found a couple of blazers that are a little more on the funky, stylish, unique side, if you will, for pretty cheap. So highly recommend, just like they said, thrifting is the way to go. Who doesn't love a bargain? So thank y'all so much for sharing those. I want to kind of round out. We've talked about the application of lessons you've learned from livestock judging into our professional careers. So I'm curious, do you mind sharing with our listeners what's next? What opportunities are you excited about moving forward? Where are you headed? Lexi, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, so I'm in probably the scariest part of my life, I would call it, because I get this question, have got this question for the past about 6 months about what my plan was. And all throughout, I would say from my senior year of high school to my junior year of college, I had the same plan, and I worked with the same person and was planning to pursue the reproductive side of stuff in terms of small ruminant reproduction. And for me, that plan all of a sudden changed here within my senior year, and no fault of anybody's, but just more of a location-based issue. And so I decided not to necessarily pursue that path. And then here I was my senior year of college with no idea what I was going to do now. And I think that's probably a common issue or things that people have to go through. And so I went through every idea in my head of, do I need to pursue a master's, or do I need to get an MBA? Do I need to go home? And so I am still on the path of just trying to figure it out. I just graduated this past Saturday. And as of right now, I'm planning to take more of a remote position with a supplement company, and then hopefully also planning to get my real estate license and maybe try to get into that industry as well. But I think the grand scheme of what I'm trying to say is it's okay to not have a plan right away. Everyone always expects, okay, you get your degree and now you have to know exactly what your lifelong career is going to be. And so right now I'm just kind of letting life take me where I'm supposed to be. I'm planning to live in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And so just going to try to continue to be involved in our industry as much as I possibly can. And I guess my biggest goal and thing that I'm focused on is the fact that I'm getting to now travel the country and judge various livestock shows. And that's probably what I have to look forward to the most, is the transition from collegiate livestock judging and now getting to be in the middle of the ring holding a microphone. And that has really been the most rewarding part for myself.
Yeah, so for me, like I mentioned earlier, I just graduated from Northern Oklahoma College, and I announced earlier in the month that I will be attending Kansas State University. I plan on getting my animal science and pre-law degree. I'm actually excited to be coached by Peyton Dahmer, and actually one of Lexi's teammates, Brady Midcap. He'll be the assistant there at K-State, so I'm pretty excited about that. But where I'll be on the livestock judging team as well. But yeah, like Lexi said, don't be afraid if you don't have a plan. What I encourage people to do is, like I said earlier, get out to people, network. That's probably one of the most important skills that you can learn to try and figure out what you at least want to do. But yeah, so after that, after Kansas State, I plan on hopefully going to law school. I'm not sure where yet, but I plan on being an agricultural attorney. Hopefully one day my end goal is to have my own law firm. So that's my plan. Hopefully, I mean, I'm not sure some of that will change, but I'm pretty excited to be in Manhattan in the fall. So yeah.
Those are wonderful things that you guys have going on. Super excited to see all that you accomplished going forward. I'm curious, would y'all mind sharing for our listeners out there that aren't super familiar? Obviously, Lexi, you said that you're going to still get to judge afterwards, but in addition to that, you're going to have a job. So maybe what are some of the other jobs that maybe your friends or teammates have lined up, just to give us a broader perspective of the different opportunities post-collegiate judging?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the more common paths, and actually 4 of my teammates will be doing it, is getting your master's and being the assistant coach at whatever university you decide. So Mason Allen, he's going to go ahead and stay at Texas Tech and assist Skylar in his coaching and then get his master's. As Madison mentioned, Brady is headed to Kansas State. Jack Habian, he's going to go ahead and head to the University of Arkansas. So there's a lot of opportunity for that if that's something that you're hoping to pursue. And, you know, a master's can be very beneficial in your long-term career as well. My other teammates, like Jansen, he will be moving into a role as more of a barn and cell manager for Fitz Genetics. And so there's definitely the opportunity for that as well if you want to go straight into the production side. I know people are needing help and they're needing people that are experienced and qualified to do it. I have another teammate who's getting her MBA online while working for our university at Texas Tech. So there's just a lot of opportunity. One of my roommates, she was planning to go to law school and, you know, has now transitioned more into the idea of moving more so into an industry job. So I think it just goes to prove that your goals or your plan changes over time. And even right here at the end, I think a lot of us, you feel a little panicked. You're like, okay, I have to move out, you know, in a month. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And it's okay to feel that way because most people's first job certainly is not their last. So, like Madison's mentioned a couple times, I think just your connections that you've built, you can always have some sort of security in that because people are going to know the type of person you are and likely the type of employee you will be based on what we have done for ourselves here within collegiate livestock judging. So, something will work out and your life will go exactly how it needs to be.
Those are awesome careers and super excited for all of your teammates. And again, just like I mentioned for you guys, excited to see all that they will accomplish in their various paths. But Lexi, I definitely know and have personally experienced the panic that you mentioned. Just like you said, you realize you have a month until you have to move out and you're like, oh man, what am I going to do? I felt that pressure for a long time. I also considered possibly going to grad school, shout out at Texas Tech or at Oklahoma State. And there's a lot of different options. And just like you said, you can have a plan and that's great. And kudos to you if it works out exactly the way you want it to. But more times than not, it will not work out the way that you have planned. And that's exactly what happened for me. So being the type A person that I am, and I like to have everything planned out very far in advance, I didn't actually end up accepting an offer until the week of graduation. And so that was a lot of pressure and panic, but just like you said, it all works out. You got to have some faith in the man upstairs and trusting that he will make your path clear as it comes and as it should be. So to round us out, ladies, I have a couple of rapid fire questions for you guys. I can ask the question, and if you both just want to give me a quick answer so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better, we'll kick off. What is your favorite species?
Mine would be sheep for sure.
Mine would have to be cattle.
Okay. What is something you can't function without during contests or workouts?
Mine would be gum. I remember, I think there was one contest I had to go into without gum, and I thought my world was coming to an end. So I definitely would always have my pockets stuffed with it.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't relate to something more. My teammates would actually make fun of me because of how much gum I would chew during a contest. But yeah, I would have to say my gum and my jewelry for sure.
Do y'all have a favorite flavor of gum?
Oh, I like the blue 5 gum the best.
Me too.
Okay, so maybe that's a secret to being a successful livestock judger. You heard it here first, people. We talked a little bit about judging fashion, but in just a livestock show, a livestock world in general, do you have a favorite fashion trend right now?
Okay, I love Twillies. One, because of the name. Whoever came up with the name is awesome. And whoever came up with the idea is also awesome because I think they're so fun and you can do so much with them. And I think probably like fun patterns and colored pants that have been coming a thing at shows. Those are a lot of fun too.
I would have to say like poncho belts. I think it makes every outfit. I think it goes with almost everything. And I would have to say polka dots. I'm glad that they're coming back.
Okay, I love those. And lastly, where can our listeners find you?
You guys can find me on any social media platform just under Lexi Hunt. And I also always tell people if I'm judging a show that you're at or anything of that sort, people coming and talking to me afterwards, not necessarily about the show, but about, either my experience or if you have questions for me, I am totally open ears for that and love that.
Yeah, you can also find me on all social media platforms, whether that's Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, Snapchat, you name it. I probably have that social media platform. But yeah, like Lexi said, if you ever see me at a show, whether that's either a contest, whatever the case may be, don't be afraid to come up to Lexi or I and come and ask us questions. I think that's the part that it takes to be successful is to not be scared to reach out to people and ask those questions. So don't be scared to reach out.
Thank y'all so much for offering that help in your handles on social media. I think it goes without saying, but these ladies are offering their advice and their wisdom. And so they're not lying when they say that they want to help. So if you have questions for them, definitely reach out. You can reach out to me and I can put you in touch with them. They're great people and they've shared so much advice. But with that, Madison and Lexi, is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners before we conclude the episode?
Yeah, I guess my main point of advice, and that I usually give everybody, is one of my favorite quotes. I guess I'll lead off with that is, why shoot for the stars when there's footprints on the moon? And that is something I've loved that quote probably since I was 8 years old and first saw it on social media. And my advice would just be, if you think you worked hard today, find a way to work harder tomorrow. And I promise you that no matter if the outcome that you're looking for, kind of like I talked about earlier with an episode, even if you don't get or reach that exact goal you set for yourself, the drive, the passion, the work ethic that you learn moving towards that goal will be more beneficial in your life than anything else.
Yeah, something that I want to end on, similar to what Lexi said, is that all of that hard work and that work ethic and everything like that, and the effort and the time and the sweat and the tears, it'll all be rewarding at the end. We're always told, especially in practice, showing no matter what it is, you have to practice like you play. You can't expect to get those rewards and outcomes if you don't practice like you play. So I think it's important to also never give up. Always be confident. Don't listen to the negativity whatsoever. It's always important to stay positive, and keep pursuing those goals and accomplishments, because one day you will eventually get there. Because you got to always remember, we were just like those little kids watching those older collegiate judges when me and Lexi were also 8 years old, wanting to do the same thing. So it's important to always remember that there's people looking up to you. But yeah, just never give up and always stay confident.
Those are great pieces of advice to end on. To our listeners out there, Lexi and Madison are proof that collegiate judging is about so much more than memorizing classes or giving reasons. It's about discipline, confidence, growth, and learning how to handle both success and adversity with grace. Their journeys remind us that some of the most valuable lessons happen far beyond the backdrop or the contest ring. Whether you're considering judging, moving away for college, or simply trying to find your place in the livestock industry, their stories show just how far hard work and a willingness to grow can take you. With that, be sure to follow our page and join our group on Facebook, where you can get updates about the podcast, ask questions, and even share motivation with other young girls and women in the stock show industry. Until next time, sisters, this is your co-host, Riki Nardiello, and I hope you have a fabulous week.